Hey, welcome to Brightworks. What we're working on today, this is from 1958, this engine. So normally, if we wanted to re-blacken these studs, these were black, so they weren't gold cad. They were actually black originally. And you can see they've got a rusty color to them. Unfortunately, blackening is not the most effective way. That's why a lot of places have gone away from it. But what we want to do is we want to try to re-blacken these studs. Normally, if this were newer, I'd pull these studs out. But what I don't want to mess around with is any chance of stripping the original aluminum case or engine block from 1958. So we're going to try and do it in situ. So the first thing we're going to do is I've got this tap set up so this is very light. So we're not actually going to cut threads. We're just going to try and clean out some of the excess rust that is built up in there. So we're just going to run this tap by hand down this, and I don't know if you can hear it, but I can feel it where it's actually going through and cleaning those threads out and getting some of the rust out of there. So we'll get that off of there, the heavy stuff anyway. All right, so now that stud is that stud's in pretty good shape as far as getting the heavy stuff off. It'd be a whole lot easier if we could pull that stud out and we could either bead blast it or go through even with a wire brush would be a lot easier. What we're going to use now, a very, very light acid. It's really an aluminum cleaner, but it's a light acid to help convert that rust and help us strip some of that rust off. So you can see that the rag, or the paper towel in this case, is taking most of that off with just a little bit of help from a chemical. Nothing too serious. We're not trying to hurt this stud at all. Just going to make it pretty. Now our mount that goes on here comes out to about this far on the stud. And then your nut will come out to about this far with the washer. So you're going to see this last little portion. So aesthetically, we're just trying to make it look as original as possible. So we got that little guy pretty clean so far. And like I said, I'm using something called Alumabrite. You can pick up at a local Napa hardware store or a Napa auto store. They make the best stuff. Now let that dry for just a second. And then what we're going to do is we're going to clean that off with plain old IPA, isopropyl alcohol. So I think I got this at CVS, 91%. So this is the high strength stuff. And I'm just going to rinse all of that off manually. All right, because we're trying to do this with everything still assembled here. And we'll let that air dry for just a second. Now, I've got some stuff from Eastwood Blackening Solution. And I just got the cap here. It's a little blue, but what it's going to do is it's going to actually change this stud so that it has a nice black color to it. And it's not rusting it, it's not converting it, it's just kind of changing it according to their chemistry lesson they give you online. And I'm going to use a paintbrush to just put a little bit on there. I don't want to get this all over everything because it'll stain stuff that we don't want stained. So I'm going to use a paintbrush, and that paintbrush, get this uniformly put on there. Just all done by hand. We'll give that, it says about 30 seconds to a minute to dry. So we can see we don't have any drips. Tap the bottom, make sure I don't take any drips off. You can see already it's converting it to the black. It's supposed to be rust resistant, but I'll tell you, I've blackened studs this way, and in 2 days in Florida outside, they do get a little rusty again. But you can spray them with clear coat or something like that, but we're not going to go all that distance. We just want to get the top stuff off. And we'll wipe this guy off. And as you can see, compared to this one down here, what we've got now is a nice black stud. And what you're going to visually see is you're going to see the tip. And this holds a motor mount. And we've already done these two here. But this holds a motor mount that'll go on there. And once you have a nut, you'll see a nice fresh finish of a stud that has probably been in this engine, well, definitely been in this engine longer than I've been alive, but 1958, so we're talking 50-something years. That's the primary reason that all the critics will say, why didn't you just take it out and bead blast it and use a metal brush on it? Because I don't want to disturb these threads. You strip those threads out, now you're drilling it, put a time cert in, you're doing a lot more work than you need to. But those are the 3 steps. Clean it really well, a little rubbing alcohol, run a very loose tap. If you can, get a cleaning tap. These are 8x1.0s. I didn't have any 8x1.0 cleaning taps. I only have a 8x125. So I loosened up a regular tap, ran it down there. A die for the technical people down there. I ran the die down there. You saw me knock the loose rust off, wiped it off again with rubbing alcohol, cleaned it with a light solution of acid, very light solution, and then cleaned it again and applied the blackening solution. Cleaned that off. Now before I go to torque the bolt down or the nut down on here, I'll clean it one more time with isopropyl alcohol just to get the extra stuff off there that didn't come off. And it should last, it'll look good, and it'll naturally age. So instead of having 58 years or 50 some odd years, 58 years of junk built up on it, now it's got 5 minutes of junk built up on it, and it'll age with the rest of the motor so that it all looks appropriate. Well, thanks for watching how to blacken a stud in situ. Thank you.